Joel from The Last of Us and Arthur from Red Dead Redemption 2 have more in common than you'd think. They are both white men from the South. Not you, Pedro. They both lost children in life-altering events and both share the same outlook on life.
I wish things were different, but it weren't us who changed.
I wish things were different, but they ain't.
But most importantly, they are as dangerous and dominant as each other. Joel is a battle-hardened survivor who has been through it all, and Arthur is the muscle behind the most dangerous gang in the West. And both could make you shit your pants just by looking at you. Which brings up the important question: if they were to go up against each other, who would win? To keep things fair, I'm picking both Joel and Arthur at their absolute peak. This means that when I talk about Joel, I don't mean the emotional wreck that we see in the show, who's more broken than hardened. I'm talking about... And when I mention Arthur, I don't mean the blood-coughing sick man who we see at the end of the game. I'm talking about...
I'm sending you straight to hell!
I won't do this shallow TikTok comparison thing where every aspect gets 1 second and no nuance. I will try to be as comprehensive and unbiased as possible, which means that I will put Joel and Arthur into as many different scenarios as possible to see who comes out on top. So let's start with the most probable scenario. Joel and Arthur are dropped into a random building, each with the sole purpose of taking the other out by any means necessary. Joel would have his weapons, and so would Arthur, and there would be plenty of cover for both. Arthur has Deadeye and is a formidable threat in his own right. If you watch what it looks like in real time, his Deadeye ability looks borderline superhuman. But Joel has a way more extensive arsenal, including flamethrowers, nail bombs, big boy shotguns, small boy shotguns, and frickin' M16 fully automatic rifles. Arthur's best weapon in this situation would be outright outclassed by Joel's worst. Besides, Joel excels in close quarters combat compared to Arthur, with a lot of his encounters taking place in cramped buildings, while most of Red Dead 2 combat is mid to long range. So if they're both put into a tight space, Joel easily wins. If you don't believe me just yet, consider the fact that while Arthur may have a superhuman ability that is Deadeye, Joel also has a superhuman ability of his own called Listen Mode, which is basically super hearing. He can literally see the outline of people's bodies through walls, which is probably more advantageous in a situation like this, since Arthur would probably have faster reaction times. But what good is that when Joel knows exactly where you are at any point anyways? That's not even mentioning the fact that Joel's stealth abilities utterly blows Arthur's own out of the water, which is probably more Rockstar's fault than anything else, because their stealth gameplay is just that bare bones.
I don't see why we have to check the train.
Arthur can distract his enemies by whistling, but that's less useful than Joel, who can throw bricks and bottles wherever he wants, making Arthur's move feel like he's literally just announcing his location to everyone around him for no benefit.
What was that?
Joel also has the ability to remain completely silent from his experience of handling clickers, which, when it comes to a situation like this, means that Joel would be more composed. So yeah, Joel takes this one by a landslide. 1-0. I'm sorry, but this situation is like Coffin Baby versus Hydrogen Bomb. Now, what if you take the same scenario, but remove the building? There would still be cover, but in an open space. That tips the scales more in Arthur's favor, as you take away the advantage of cover and super hearing that Joel has. Plus, Arthur's Deadeye is more helpful here. And like I said earlier, Arthur thrives in mid to long range combat, but it's still closer than you might think, because Joel still has the advantage in terms of gear. His weapons outclass Arthur's at basically every range. For example, Arthur has like 1 billion revolvers, but Joel has a revolver so strong that its bullets can penetrate 2 human bodies. However, I still think Arthur would come out on top, but Joel might have a chance because of his more expansive arsenal. So I'm calling it a draw, 2-1. Now, what about a classic duel?
Like the Wild West?
Yeah, like the Wild West.
Joel and Arthur would be stood 5 meters apart with their guns. What about a street fight? Anything goes, melee weapons are allowed, and each character gets melee weapons from their own game. I apologize to Arthur, but in this case, Joel wins easily, and there's simply no other scenario that I find possible. Joel spent 20 years in the apocalypse, and will stop at nothing to end the person in front of him. This is the exact opposite of Arthur, who has morals or whatever. I mean, who even needs those, right? And while moral conflicts do make for an interesting story, they do not help you when someone's trying to cave your head in during a street fight, where the less scrupulous person wins, and that person is Joel, no question. As Troy Baker once said,
Joel has few moral lines left to cross.
Joel's so ruthless that Tommy, who's a terrifying man in his own right, says he got nightmares from the stuff Joel used to do.
I got nothing but nightmares from those years.
Not to mention, and I hate to beat a dead horse here, but Joel has better and more diverse weapons than Arthur. While Arthur has a knife and basically nothing else, The Last of Us's heavier focus on melee allows Joel to have comically large machetes, whatever this is, and most importantly, golf clubs. Arthur's melee weapons are all basically different flavors of knife. Besides, none of them have the range and span that a long pipe or a 2x4 would have. So Joel takes this one, 3-2. What if you had a street fight without the weapons? This means you can't use melee weapons, but there are still no rules, meaning you can bite, headbutt, and kick the other person in the balls. Arthur would excel in this because he beat up someone who's like 50 times his size with nothing but his fists, not to mention almost defeating Micah while being basically as good as dead. So you can definitely make the case that Arthur has an edge based on sheer strength alone. Joel has fought in way more versatile combat scenarios compared to Arthur. While Arthur has only hit men, and hopefully women as well, because this is the 1800s, Joel has fought people, runners, clickers, bloaters, women, and even this doctor.
This is our future. Think of all.
Plus, not only does Joel move faster and hit harder than Arthur, who comparatively looks like he's fighting in slow motion, but he also has moves that are much more violent than Arthur's, like curb stomps, smashing people's heads into concrete surfaces, kneeing said heads against said concrete surfaces, stabbing people's throats with glass shards, and more. This ties back to Joel having few moral lines left to cross. In a scenario like this, he would more likely do some questionable shit to get the upper hand. And in a no-rules fight, that matters more than pure strength. Arthur, in comparison, fights in a very formulaic way that looks almost formal rather than brutal. So Arthur might have more strength, while Joel would be more likely to cheat to win. So I call this a tie, 4-3. Arthur has a wide range of moves, yes, but compared to Joel, they are nothing. All Arthur can do is tackle, dodge, and punch, which may help you in a UFC fight, but not when someone's trying to bite your dick off. This brings me on to maybe the most important scenario. What if Joel and Arthur fought in the UFC? First of all, we need to break down the stats. Let's start with Arthur. He was born in 1863, making him 36 years old as of 1899. Not much is known about his height, so the best we can do is a guesstimate. His height varies widely between sources. Some say he's roughly 5'9", some others give estimates so insane that they might as well be trolling, but most estimates fall into the 5'10" to 6'1" range. Although, for what it's worth, my opinion is that this is a wildly generous overestimation considering the average height at the time was like 5'7". But let's give him the benefit of the doubt and say he's 5'10" to 6'1", which, given his relatively muscular yet lean build, puts him at roughly 160 to 180 pounds. No, he's not like 200 pounds, contrary to what most people think. To put this into perspective, Henry Cavill, who's also 6 foot, weighs 200 pounds and looks like this, so there's no way Arthur weighs the same while looking like this. Dare I say, due to physique inflation, Arthur might even be skinny according to FitnessGram, although I believe the more fitting term would be victim weight. Now let's do Joel. Pause. He's 51 years old in part 1, and his height is also around the 5'10" to 6 foot range, with Pedro Pascal, who played Joel in the show, being 5'11" for context. Given his build, which is definitely bulkier than Arthur, he would weigh roughly 170 to 190 pounds. So all in all, we couldn't have a better match. Both Joel and Arthur lie squarely into the middleweight division, or maybe even welterweight. Arthur is more of a striker. He gets into fights with his bare hands and wins. However, one of his downsides is his lackluster grappling. On the other hand, grappling is where Joel shines. Joel chokes enemies and knocks them out in complete silence, making him a submission specialist. He also has an explosive fighting style that ends fights in less than 5 seconds. Meanwhile, Arthur's brawls tend to drag out. Both Joel and Arthur have insane pain tolerance. Arthur can withstand being tortured and contracting TB, and Joel shrugged off being impaled by a piece of rebar like it's the common cold. Joel is significantly more experienced compared to Arthur, and is definitely more ruthless, so he would have the right combination of fight IQ, explosive power, and precision. But there is one big caveat to this fight: Joel's age. If the Mike Tyson versus Jake Paul fight taught us anything, it's that age has a devastating effect on our bodies. Despite Mike Tyson being one of the most dangerous men alive at some point, time will always get the better of everyone no matter what. So while Joel's experience is an advantage in almost any other aspect of combat, in a one-on-one inside an octagon with rules and regulations, he would probably lose to Arthur, whose youth is the biggest advantage here. Joel has less stamina, reaction time, and agility. Besides, Arthur's formal style of fighting will suit him perfectly in the octagon, just like the Tyson-Paul fight. My prediction is that Joel's explosive nature and experience gives him a real shot at a first-round finish. But if that doesn't happen, Arthur's endurance would lead him to victory. So I call this an overall coin toss, with Arthur having a higher chance of winning, 4-4. So Joel is better when there are no rules, precisely because he doesn't have rules or a moral code that he follows anyways, combined with the fact that his weapons and gadgets make him undeniably more capable than Arthur, with Joel easily taking the most probable scenario. But when we restrict Joel's capabilities and force a fair fighting ground, Arthur wins. So they're both ruthless, but who's better overall? The answer is, who cares?
Oh my god, who the hell cares?
You just watched a long-ass video about 2 fictional characters in fictional scenarios debating who would win. Get a job.
Go and get a job! A job! Job! Better make the next one count. Ah!